After about a decade of minimalist living, I've had a lot of experience with decluttering. Though I've never kept count of the things I've decluttered over the years, I'd say it's probably at least a couple thousand. And while most of these were pretty easy to let go of, there were some that took a bit more thought, and I definitely struggled for a while about what I wanted to do with them. So I thought it'd be fun to share with you the 10 hardest things I've ever decluttered so far, what my reasons were behind getting rid of them in the end, and if I've ever come to regret my decision. And my hope is that by sharing the reasoning behind it, even though the items might be different for you than they were for me, they could still be helpful with making some of the tougher decisions when it comes to your possessions as well. Hi everyone, welcome back, and if you're new here, this is a place where you can get tips and inspiration for living a simpler, happier, and calmer life. So be sure to hit subscribe down below if you haven't already to follow along whenever I post a new video. Of the 10 things that I'm going to share with you today, 7 are actual things like physical possessions, and the other 3 are more like hobbies or activities or things I spent my time and energy on. So I'll be discussing those at the end. The first thing that was very hard for me to make a decision about was a kimono that I bought on my first ever trip to Japan that I took together with my boyfriend when we were 18. So that's already 15 years ago. That's rough. I've always been a fan of the kimono culture in Japan, and so I wanted to get my own while I was there. But it's important to know that I didn't go to like an actual proper kimono store. I went to a very cheap touristy shop that sold cheap kimonos to tourists, basically. We were very young, we didn't have a large budget while we were there, we already had to pay for the trip, so I wanted to get a kimono, but it was not actual like a proper kimono. I also didn't have the proper accessories like the shoes you're supposed to wear with it. It was missing a few straps, so I couldn't really close it properly with the obi and stuff. So it was just, it was a cheap thing. I kept the kimono for years and years in a plastic box in the back of my closet. I don't really remember what I thought was going to happen when I bought it. I guess I hoped that I would be able to wear it every once in a while. Obviously that didn't happen, so apart from looking at it every once in a while, it was just basically sitting at the back of my closet in a box. This was hard for me to let go for 2 reasons. First was that the trip to Japan was really magical for us. We were 18, it was the first time we went outside of Europe, and while I bought many things while I was there, this was one of them, and it was a reminder of that trip for me. And second, ever since reading Memoirs of a Geisha, I've always wanted to wear a proper kimono at least like once in my life, and this came nothing close to the real thing, but it was the closest that I've ever come. So after many years, I decided to finally let go of it. It was still sitting in the back of my closet in the box. I still haven't been able to wear it, and after a while it became this kind of negative thing, like something I should have done something with but never did, and that's kind of silly. So I took a few pictures to remember it by and let it go in the end, which was very freeing, and I felt lighter somehow. Even though it reminds you of kind of like a special time in your life, you don't always need the actual thing to remember it. I still have lots of photos and memories from that trip, and I feel like I can actually enjoy those a lot more now that I don't have this thing in the back of my head that's kind of making me feel a little sad and guilty. Do I regret decluttering it? No. Do I regret buying it? Not really, because I was a lot younger and I understand why I did it, but if I could go back in time, I would probably tell myself not to buy a cheap kimono that would just be sitting in the back of my closet for years. This is a hard one. Growing up, I used to be naturally slim, but ever since hitting my 20s, I've had some weight fluctuations and basically gained some weight slowly and gradually over the years. And so every 2-3 years, I would go up a size and there would suddenly be these items in my closet that were too small for me. Getting rid of them was hard for me because I had a little trouble accepting at that time that my body was changing, and I didn't want to admit to myself that I wouldn't be able to fit into these items again. So every time I went up a size, I kept the smaller items for way too long, and obviously that only made me feel worse, not better, which was completely unnecessary. I realize that now, and now I believe that it's usually better to let go of clothing items that don't fit you anymore unless you have a clear plan. Like maybe you're actively working on losing or gaining some weight, or you've just had a baby or something like that, where it's realistic to think that you will be able to fit into them again in the future, then it makes more sense to keep them around. But otherwise, I think life is just too short to worry about all of these items that you are no longer able to wear. For me, I find that it works much better for my self-esteem if I only have items that actually fit me, and I will just donate the rest so other people can get use out of them and only have the things that I actually fit. By the way, I talk more about my journey when it comes to health and weight and body image and stuff like that over on my Patreon. I also share with them what I'm doing to stay healthy and to keep a good, positive relationship with my body. So if you're interested in stuff like that, then you can always join us on patreon.com/simplehappyzen. This one I know people are going to get upset about in the comments because I have shown my stuffed animals a couple of times in previous videos on this channel, talking about how hard it was for me to let them go, even though they were just in a box in storage. And about a year ago, I finally made the decision to declutter them. The thing that ultimately tipped the scales and made me decide to get rid of them was that we were looking to move at the time, and it was very likely that we would move to a place that is smaller than this place and also had less storage space. So we had some things in storage here that were going to be hard to move with us, and I guess I finally just felt ready to say goodbye. Why was it so hard? Because I've had them for so long. I truly loved them for a while, and I know it is silly, but stuffed animals have a face, and it's very hard for me to know and realize that these are inanimate objects, because I felt like maybe they would be sad if I decided to declutter them. So not gonna lie, this one was a little emotional, a few tears were shed, but in the end I did feel much better. We've also decluttered a bunch of other things that we had in storage, and to me it feels really nice knowing that I don't have things in boxes anymore. We both have one small box with some sentimental things from childhood, and that's it. And to me, that feeling of not being tied down by stuff in boxes is worth more than, the items that were being stored in those boxes. Even if I kind of love them, I wasn't really looking at them. They were just in the box. And my boyfriend sometimes says, it's a saying, but he made it up himself. He said, I want to be where the wind is, not where the sandbags are, or something like that. He said it in Dutch. But I know what he means, and I feel the same way. I remember making a video a while ago about things I only own one of, and I mentioned that I had 3 watches at the time, but I was only ever wearing one of them, and the other 2 were hard for me to let go of for sentimental reasons. First, there was a watch that my boyfriend gave me a couple of years ago for my birthday, and while I have gotten a lot better at decluttering gifts than I used to be, this one was hard for me because I just thought it was so sweet, he picked it out for me and stuff. So I just talked to him about it honestly, and he made me feel a lot better. He told me that he had no problem if I gave it away to someone else. So that's what I did. And then there was a watch that I used to wear a lot, but never anymore because it was just not my style anymore. But I bought it for myself when I graduated college. I remember that it was a bit of a difficult and challenging time for me back then, and I wanted to give myself a present for pushing through and graduating, so that's why that watch was sentimental to me. But in the end, I decided, I have these memories, I don't have to hold on to the watch itself. If I know I'm never going to wear it, I know that I did wear it a lot, so I did get a lot of use out of it, and I could just pass it along to someone else. All of these were hard decisions for me to make, but every time I decided to let something go, I remember feeling a huge sense of relief and freedom, as silly as that might sound. And so if you are struggling with an item, try imagining if you would feel relieved if the item was just gone one day. And if you would, then that is a good sign that probably it could be a good idea to declutter it. But also know that you don't have to let go of things like this. It is also 100% allowed to keep things around for whatever reason, I still have a bunch of things that I hardly ever use but keep for different reasons. So this video is not meant as me telling you to just get rid of everything because of minimalism. That is not my intention. I also finally bit the bullet and decided to declutter almost all of our Christmas decorations. We already didn't have that much, but we had a fake tree, we had some ornaments and stuff like that. And again, they were taking up quite a bit of space in storage. So with the potential move on the horizon, which by the way did not end up happening, but that's a different story, we decided to let them go in the end. The only things I did keep were 2 strings of lights. I love how they make the space cozier in the darker months, and I found that they are actually enough for me to still feel nice and Christmassy, but without all the storage boxes. I guess I kind of felt like you were supposed to have Christmas decorations, like it's just something that everyone has, and if you don't, then you're like the Grinch or something. So it's kind of like societal pressure, but it's internal because no one is actually making me have these things. And I found that I can make the space feel just as nice and cozy with only those 2 string lights that hardly take up any space. But again, if you are different and if you like to go all out for the holidays, then obviously that is perfectly fine too. I also let go of all of my high heels over the years. When I was younger, high heels were definitely part of my fantasy self. I'm not hating on heels. I think they can be very pretty, so if you enjoy them, keep them. But for me, I found that I was mostly keeping them out of insecurity because when I was younger, I didn't feel like pretty or sexy if I wasn't the type of girl who had high heels. And to be honest, I've always felt much more comfortable and also much more like myself when I'm wearing sneakers. It's just more my style. I was also in pain a lot of the time when it came to my heels. I twisted my ankles a bunch of times. So after a while, I was just done with them. So I just made the decision, I am not a high heels type of person. That's perfectly okay. I'm never going to buy them again. And I donated all of the ones that I still had, and I'm a much happier person. This one I could keep short, but I also decided to declutter most of the greeting cards and sentimental papers and all of that stuff that I still had in storage, and I decided to keep only the best ones and declutter the rest. And now I find that I actually look at them a lot more often because it's only a small pile and I love all of them. So while it was a little difficult for me to like be strict and only keep the best ones, I do find that I am getting a lot of enjoyment, a lot more enjoyment from the ones that I did keep. Something else I decluttered, or more accurately quit, is Tai Chi. I've been doing Tai Chi for 11 years at that point, and it was very special to me for a couple of different reasons. The biggest one being that it was something that my dad and I always did together. But I did decide to quit or declutter it after many months of agonizing. So my dad and I went to Tai Chi every Monday night for 11 years. And by that time, I was also doing yoga, and I found that my body was responding to yoga a lot more. So I kind of wanted to pursue that more. And I also was kind of tired of having that weekly commitment. Usually the lessons took until like 9:30 p.m., which is late for me because that's usually like bedtime. It was hard for me to quit for 2 reasons. The first being that I didn't want to disappoint my dad. I know that he was still having a good time. And I knew that it was unnecessary because after I talked to him about it, finally, he was very sweet and understanding, and he made me feel a lot better about it. So that was unnecessary. And even now, we still take a lesson here or there together, like a couple times a year. So it's still something that we share. Second, because I've been doing it for so long, I kind of didn't want to give up and lose that skill. Like by that time, I've gotten pretty good at it, and I knew that if I wasn't going to go to the lessons anymore, then I would lose that progress that I made, and it would be like a waste. This taught me a very valuable lesson about learning skills in life, which can be very fun and very valuable, but it's also okay if they don't stay with you all of your life. I just really felt like I was done with Tai Chi and I wanted to pursue other things, and that is perfectly fine. If I ever want to go back to it, I can always do that. There's no one stopping me. And so instead of thinking about it as a skill that you lose, it's more accurate to say that it's a cool thing that I was able to do it for so long and that I got pretty good at it by the end. There have also been other hobbies that I quit along the way, either because I tried something new and it wasn't really working out, or because it was just time to move on to something else and it wasn't working for me anymore. And all of those times it was difficult for me. Hobbies are absolutely wonderful, but if we're just not really enjoying them anymore, or if we're just not feeling excited by them anymore for whatever reason, they can also be draining because they can make us feel guilty for not spending enough time on them, and that's really unnecessary. We can feel completely free to try new hobbies, enjoy old ones, and let go of them when we feel ready to move on to something else. The last thing that I want to talk about today that I decided to declutter when I was in like my mid to late 20s was worrying about my looks. And this was a conscious decision that I made to just stop worrying about it, where I really made the decision to let go of that aspect of my life, which was a hard thing to do, but definitely a good decision, and something that continues to contribute to my happiness still every day. I used to be very insecure, not just about my looks, but about a bunch of other things too. I talked about it in a recent video about how I also learned to become more confident. So I will leave that video right here for you and in the description box in case you wanna watch it. But luckily, ever since my late 20s, early 30s, I feel a lot better about myself, and I definitely don't worry about my looks as much anymore. I still like taking care of myself and just looking presentable and all of that. But what changed was that I'm not trying to look like anyone but me anymore. When I was younger, I would look at all of these other girls and I would see what they had, and I wanted to look like that too, which is silly because you cannot look like 100 different people. You can only look like you. So yes, I care about how I look, but I no longer worry about it, and I no longer feel like I need to measure up or compare my looks with other people. Thinking about these 10 things, I think they have to do a lot with acceptance, accepting who we are and who we are not, accepting when things change or when we change or circumstances change, and being okay with inviting in new things, but also letting go of the old. It doesn't mean letting go of the memories of it or denying that this thing used to be important to you or that it played a part in your life. I think it just means not holding on when you really just want to let go. I would love to know the hardest thing you've ever decluttered and how you feel about it now in the comment section down below. And I would also love it if you could give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Right here are the best purchases I've ever made as a minimalist, and right there are 10 mistakes most new minimalists make. As always, questions, comments, conversations down below. Have a lovely day. Thank you for being here, and I will see you again next week. Bye bye.